Hi guys, in today's tutorial we're going to be working on these two images, combining them, and I haven't quite decided exactly which direction I'm going to go in. I happened to be flipping through my images and I saw both of these on the same screen and I was like, oh, those look really cute together. As you know, I really usually like to start off with a sketch or design, but for this one we're going to try something a tiny bit different. We're going to combine these two images on a new piece of grass and just see where it takes us. Now this is the piece of grass that I photographed. Well, I actually was photographing this little African deer-like animal. I cannot think of what its real name is, but I really like how this grass falls and the depth of field in the background, and I really think the giraffe and the boy will look really great together. However, I'm pretty sure we're going to have to extend the scene. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to take my crop tool and pull it out. Go ahead and click OK. And then we're just going to grab our rectangle marquee tool. For this one, it might work selecting the entire deer. I'm just going to call it a deer because there is nothing else in the scene that it should interfere with. So we're just going to go to Edit, Fill, Content Aware Fill, and choose Enter or hit Select. And that fills in that area. And honestly, it messed up just a little bit right here, but I'm pretty sure the giraffe is going to sit right there, so I think it's going to be okay. So now I'm just going to select this area over here, go again, Edit, Fill, Content Aware Fill, OK, and just see what happens. It should fill in very nicely. It does. Now it repeats a little bit right here, so what I'm going to do, I'm just going to select this small section here and do another fill. If it repeats again, which it did not, we would just use our patch tool or our clone tool to break it up a little bit. So I'm just removing a couple more repetitive little pieces and that's it. So on this section, what I'm going to do is I'm going to just select the top portion, go up to Edit, Content Aware Scale, and we're going to drag this up a bit. Now you have to be very careful because look at how those pixels stretch when you do it that way. You only can stretch just a little bit before it starts to look a little weird. So just be very careful when you're doing that. And as you can see, it's kind of repetitive right here. So let's select this area and we're just going to drag it around. Since I don't know exactly where my giraffe is, I'm going to fill in as much of this background area as I can. Now I'm going to select half of it and just see how it fills. So Content Aware Scale Fill, or not Content Aware Scale, Edit, Content Aware Fill. There we go. Okay, and let's go ahead and do this other side and just see what happens. Edit, Content Aware, or I keep saying Content Aware Scale. Fill, Content Aware, okay. So, it's a tongue twister sometimes. So we have that filled in and we're just going to grab our patch tool. I'm going to select right here in the middle. And we're just going to move this around a little bit. And that just sort of breaks up that repetitive pattern and keeps it from looking too obvious. Okay, now I'm going to select with my rectangle marquee tool all the way down to the grass line, not on the grass line, just right above it. So we're going to select Modify and Feather. Let's feather this by about 55 pixels. Layer, new layer via copy. We're duplicating just this section. And now we are going to fill, blur, Gaussian blur. And we're just going to soften this background up. I don't want to overdo it too much, but I do want to maintain this separation there. Okay, so let's go ahead and get our giraffe, and I'm going to bring him into the scene. That's our bird we might use later. Let me just go ahead and pull him out. And I'll shrink him, and then we're going to click on the middle of our giraffe, and we're going to click and drag over top the grass until that appears. A plus symbol will appear, and then we're going to release. So I think this needs to be a little bit bigger. So we're going to go to Transform and Scale. You can hold your Shift key to maintain that aspect ratio. And let's go right about here. If you notice, I'm paying really close attention to the horizon line or the grass line that's already in the giraffe image. This kind of helps me get my placement down. I'm going to put him right about there. Choose OK. And now I'm going to just really quick, this is going to be super sloppy, I'm going to take my eraser and just erase right along and remove a little bit of that so I can pull the boy in and get the placement down first. And then I'll go in and clean it up a little bit more. All right, let's grab our boy. I'm going to close my giraffe down real quick. And we went ahead and brought him into the scene. We clicked and drug, waited for that plus symbol to appear, and now we're just going to hold our shift key, select, and shrink him down. Now, as you know, giraffes are quite large and little boys are a lot shorter, so we're just going to play around with the placement until I think we have it about right. And this looks pretty good. If I put him right next to him here and line his feet up, he's a little bit taller than what he should be next to a adult giraffe, but I don't want to take him down and have him so realistic that it doesn't look like a natural or a pleasing to the eye image. That's the problem with really, really large animals is you're having to balance between a realistic size, what they are in real life, versus what they look next to toddlers and children. So you can get away with making the children a little bit larger than they should be. Okay, so let's go ahead and we'll put him right about there. And now we will do the same thing. We're just going to quickly erase around the little boy just to get the fill, make sure everything looks all right. And the coloring looks really good. We might have to adjust it just a hair, but I think overall it looks really great. Okay, our next step we're going to do is go around and clean up the entire image, make sure all the giraffe and the background for the little boy is removed. And while doing that, I'm going to be thinking about what am I going to do to make this scene tell a story? What am I going to include in it? How am I going to make my viewers happy? I like my composites to tell a story, make them laugh, sort of be funny at times. And I do serious ones as well, but this one I think I'm going to try to think, how can I make this a funny storytelling image? So let's go ahead and get started cleaning up the image. I'm just going to do a very quick erase around, and then we'll go in and do some detail work. Okay, so we've gone around almost everything very closely. I still have to clean up, but I wanted to come in and show you a couple things. First, when you're placing your subject matter, if your subject's in focus and you have a very small depth of field on the ground, make sure that your subject is in that same line of depth of field. So right now, if I go down and I erase this little section between his legs, he will look more like he belongs there than if he was in the front. Because if he was down here in the front with everything out of focus, then he would have to be out of focus as well. So what we do, if we're going to place him right here in this line, is we're just going to grab our blur tool. You can also do this by selecting it and then blurring it out, but I'm okay with doing it this way, and I'm just going to match this blur to the grass blur. It also helps blend his feet in a little bit better because he already has some grass on his feet. So basically we're going to treat this like he's standing right at the edge of that depth of field line and his body's kind of tilting backwards, and toddlers actually do that, so that is understandable. So if we toggle off of this, this is the area before that had the little deer in, and we're going to have to clean this up or move our move our giraffe over. So let's go ahead and move the giraffe over just a tiny bit. And what this is going to let us do, it'll let us edit less of the grass. We want to make sure, because he's in focus right here and all of this grass is in focus, we want to make sure we keep him in the same depth of field line as well. So I think that we can get away with putting him right about here and just go through and of course erase and clean up any lines. Now, right here along the grass line, it blends in okay, but it could still need some work. It could still use some work. So we're going to come over, grab our grass brush, and we're just going to click here and there. Let's increase that brush size a bit. Oop, that's too much. And what's happening is we're erasing on top of the giraffe, but it's allowing that background green grass color to come through. And it's just going to blend those two areas together. Now, I like the grass that's already on him from where he was laying in the grass, so I don't want to remove all of it. I just want to add a little bit of the green that's behind there into the scene. And right there looks pretty good. We're still seeing this grass here in the front. That's a little, it's a little blurry. So what we're going to do, we're just going to grab our patch tool and then click and drag in the same depth of field line. Again, this can create patterns, repeating patterns, so just be very careful. I just want to try to make this look as realistic as possible. Okay, let's scan down here to the front side. All of this right here needs to be a little bit more in focus because this whole line of grass should be in focus. It starts to fade out, but we just need to be very careful. Okay, that looks pretty good there. Let's zoom out and take a look at that. I like that. His eye line of sight is going straight up to right about here. So what we can do with our giraffe, before we even finish cutting him out, we can go to Puppet Warp. Deselect, go to Edit, Puppet Warp. That's going to select just the giraffe. And let's just create 2 anchor points here and here. That's going to lock you in place. One right here at the base of the neck, and then we're going to put one right at where the neck bends, and then one at the mouth, and we're just going to kind of bend his face over so he's looking down more. Let's see how that looks. That looks pretty good. Okay, so we're going to go back in, grab our eraser tool. It's set at 50% hardness, and we're going to go in very detailed with a small brush, so left bracket key, and we're just going to start erasing very close to the line. So I'm going to go ahead and go around the whole giraffe. When we get right here on the hairline, I'll come back and show you how I erase that. So we've gone around the whole giraffe with the eraser tool. Now we're going to grab our eraser and go to our hair brushes. Now, I really like this one here, so what we're going to have to do, we're going to have to lower the size, go to Windows, Brush Panel, And we're going to use our angle brush to turn this so it's going in line with the hair. And we're just going to simply click and start removing along that hair. Let me zoom in so you can see this. And if you need to move it a little bit as you go up and down the hairline, you may have to do that because the hair moves down a giraffe's back and down a giraffe's neck. So it might need to adjust a little, and you can do the size right there as well. Now if you don't want it to repeat a whole lot, all you need to do is work with those angles, the size dynamics. So we can go here to shape dynamic and change the size. And what it's going to do, it's just going to randomly change as we go down the back of the giraffe's hair. Because this image is set a little bit further away, the giraffe is not a super close up, you could get away with having this same hair pattern. Let's go all the way to the top, use my hand tool to move it. And I'm just clicking down the hairline. I've probably removed a little bit too much hair at the top, but oh well. It doesn't have to be perfect. And that's all you have to do there. You can switch brushes and change back and forth if you want, but overall I like that, and that is how I'm going to leave that. Okay, so let's take a look. Where we removed that deer, there's this little area of grass, so I'm just going to go back again, select just that grass area, and do another content aware, or to fill content aware. And there we go. So if it's duplicated a little bit, like it has right there, we'll just do another little patch. So let's just select and drag it over to the side. It's really, really easy to do. I'm just going to clean this area up right there. And that's it. That's how I would cut around the giraffe and blend it into the grass, but I still want to add something a little bit more to the scene. So let's think about that. Okay, while we think about how we're going to add other elements into the scene, I'm going to duplicate the background, grab my burn tool, and I'm going to start adding some anchor highlights into the scene. Now, right now the light is strongest on the little boy's face coming in from this top right, so I'm going to just make an artificial light come down from that top right and cast shadows down. So let's grab that burn tool, and I made the brush pretty large, and I'm just going to brush directly in front of the giraffe and out some. I just want to add a little bit of an anchor point there in the front, and then in the front of the little boy, same thing, we're going to cast a shadow where he's standing. There we go. There are so many ways to do shadows in Photoshop. You can do levels adjustments, you can do curves adjustments. This is just a very quick way that I do shadowing. If I am going to blow something up to a 30 by 40, I would go in and do a levels adjustment, but for something that's on the smaller side, I'm not too concerned about it. So the same thing, I'm going to click on the boy, and I'm just going to add a shadow on the back side of him. Just a little bit more. I mean, he's already naturally highlighted and shadowed. I just want to make it a little bit stronger so these two can pull together. Okay, on the giraffe, we are going to come in, increase with that right bracket key, and I'm just going to click here in this side only and add just a little bit more of a shadow. Then I'm going to grab my dodge tool, increase that brush size. It's at 50% exposure. I want to go ahead and turn that down just a little. And I'm just going to add a little bit of natural highlight on this side of him to match the boy's face. Might be a little too much on his ear. There we go. Now we have that natural highlight coming in. I'm kind of liking that. That's looking pretty good right there. So I've done composites in the past with paint buckets and painting on their stripes and painting giraffes. I've done all of that before, but I don't think I've done a video for that, so I might go ahead and just do the little boy painting. Before I do that, I'm just going to do a little test run to see if I actually like that. Since he has red and blue on, I'm going to pull a blue in from the paint bucket. I'm going to grab, let's go with the fur brush. It's kind of small. And let's just start painting over this to see how we like that. Now I saw this heart right here on the giraffe, so I wanted to see what it would look like if I just painted over it. It is a little sloppy right now. I will go back in and clean it up just a little bit more. It's not too bad. I'm kind of liking the thought of the heart. I'm just very quickly going in and cleaning back up around it by just erasing. It looks alright. Let's grab a purple paintbrush and let's fill in this one here. Now another way you could do this is just by simply clicking and selecting on the giraffe and selecting around that spot, and I'm doing this really quick, guys, and doing a hue and saturation slider, and as you can see, you can change that and it'll keep the tone and everything. I was wanting to see what it looked like with a little fur around it. So I'm really liking that. I might go ahead and do the paint method where I'm doing the small selections and then painting different spots. So let's go ahead and start doing that. So I'm going to duplicate my giraffe so I'm not painting directly on him. I'm going to grab and zoom in. And let's go ahead and select our first spot. I'm going to grab my paintbrush. Let's go with a normal. We're going to do a color. And I'm just going to paint directly over top of that. Now if you notice, it's starting to touch along that white. I'm not really liking that, so let's go in and choose a overlay. It's going to touch along that creamy color of his fur too, so we're just going to have to be very careful. Sometimes you can get away with it if the fur is very white. It won't paint over those spots, but in this occasion it is creamy color, so he's gonna want to be painted all one color. Another way to do it is grabbing that lasso tool, bringing that tolerance up to let's say 28, and as you can see, it just selected that. Let's select the inside. If you're going to do it this way though, you have to feather, so we're going to go to select, modify, feather, and let's feather this by about 5 pixels. And I'm going to bring my brush size up really large so I don't have any overlapping colors, and just paint directly over that. And then we can deselect. So see how it missed just a tiny bit of the edge, but it's not enough to make me like really not like how it turned out. Okay, let's go ahead and select one and turn it blue. So let's grab our magic wand, select, hold my shift key, select up here where it left off. It went ahead and selected a little bit of all that brown, so let's just go ahead and do that. Okay, select, modify, and feather. Okay, change it to blue. And we'll just go over this one here. Now that blue I don't really like so much, so let's go in and do a color. Let's see how that looks. Not bad. Let's go into green. We'll just go right underneath it and do the one under it. Ooh, see how it's gone on to that? I wasn't paying attention to what I had selected. So let's decrease that brush size and just be very careful around it. There we go. Let's go back and do one back here. Select, modify, and feather. How about a pink one? I'm just going to cover that up. I don't want to do every single one. I want him to look like he's just starting to get painted. Okay, let's zoom out and take a look at that. Kind of cute so far. So we could do this all day if we really wanted to. But I'm going to go ahead and fill in a couple more spots, and then I'm going to grab some paint buckets, some paint bucket overlays, and we will get those into the scene. So all of my paint cans are like really nasty and covered in paint. They're just not really pretty drips. So I went to Adobe Stock and I found these. So I just simply made a rectangle selection around them. I'm going to go up to select color range, click the eyedropper in the white, bring the fuzziness up. I'm trying to target just the things in the black, choose OK. And now I'm going to create a mask. Now it's going to remove this section of the cans. We're just going to brush that back in. So we're going to go to Control I, then grab our white paintbrush, and I'm just going to paint that section back in. Now there are other ways to do this. It's really, you know, if you want to go around it with the pen tool and take your time and just really get every little tiny section, you can. Because these have so much detail in them and around every little tiny thing, I really didn't want to. So I'm just going to very quickly go around the cans. And if I go over it a little bit, it's the masking layer. I just go back, switch my paintbrush to black, and paint that back off. Okay. Just make sure you get all of the paint bucket at the highest strength or it might look a little weird. So let's switch to the black and I'm going to go right along the edge, and if you noticed, I need to go around the edges too because it left a tiny bit of that line around it. Okay, so I'm going really quick so you guys don't have to wait. Just wanted you guys to have to wait for me to finish. Let's bring the hardness up, decrease that size, and let's make this a little bit more of a sharper edge so it's not too soft. Okay, so we can leave the paintbrushes together or we could separate them. I kind of like them all together. I just want to make them a little bit smaller. It looks pretty good there. We're going to grab and let's go ahead and rasterize this layer and apply the layer mask. So now it's one layer. You're going to grab our eraser tool, grab that grass paintbrush tool, and we're just going to go around it and start erasing the white, and that grass will show up behind it. So you really don't have to do too much with this grass brush. You don't have to really rotate it too much. It does it all for you. It is a little bit on the hard edge, so if you have a softer brush or a softer grass that they're sitting in, you have to be very careful with that. Okay, let's go ahead and grab that eraser and erase up near the top where I missed a spot. There we go. Alright, we're going to grab our burn tool, shrink that down, and remember that light's coming in from the top. It's going to add a shadow to the far side of these buckets. Again, I'm going very, very quickly, guys, so just make sure you take your time. Go into the grass and now add a little bit of a shadow where the paint buckets are sitting in the grass. Now, one last thing you can do is if you want a very specific color of a blue or of the red, you can select that, go in, edit adjustments, hue and saturation, and of course change that color. So adjustments, hue and saturation, we're going to target just the blues, and then you can change that. Of course it's not going to show up. Oh, because I'm on the grass, that's why. That was a silly mistake. Okay, edit adjustments, hue and saturation, make sure you're on the right layer, select your blues, and now you can change it. So if I want it to be more of this teal blue that's on his little bottom here, I can do that. And that's all I need to do. Okay, so that was a really quick tutorial. It covered some basics and I really enjoyed it. So let's go ahead and take a look at it. We're going to zoom out. I feel like the crop is off just a bit, so we're going to bring this up so it's just a little bit more pleasing on the eye. That's a lot better. So what we can do if we want to make it a little bit more dreamier like we have in the past, we're going to select all of those layers, drag down, merge, right click and merge, so now it's all on one layer. Duplicate, filter, blur, Gaussian blur. Choose OK. And we're just going to bring that back just a hair. Let's bring that to about 30%. And let's erase off of the main portion of the boy and the giraffe. And now we have that dreamy background. It just kind of blends it and mutes it together just a little bit. Okay, if you have any questions, just let me know. I am happy to help. Post them in the group or send them to me in an email.